Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air shift not toward you, but away? Like invisible hands moving pieces on a board you never saw. You watch others command respect with a glance, bend conversations with a whisper. Is it charm, fortune? No. It's design, a quiet architecture of thought and self-control. Now ask yourself, what if power isn't about controlling others, but mastering what they cannot touch? Your focus, your voice, your temperament. In the chaos of ambition and ego, the Stoics whispered a different kind of warfare. Not louder, sharper, deeper. This video isn't about tricks, hacks, or hollow charisma. It's about 6 ancient rules, forged in fire, in solitude, that let you outthink, outlast, and outclass without betraying your soul. No noise, no theatrics, just control. Because true power isn't given. It's not performed, it's remembered. So stay, watch closely. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've bitten your tongue while fools played king, this is your reckoning. This is where strategy begins and ego ends. Master your emotional fortress. To take real command of life's chaos, let's start with the one thing: fully control how you respond. Picture this: you're in the middle of a crucial meeting. Tensions are rising. A colleague blindsides you with an accusation that feels unfair, maybe even personal. Your face heats up, your breath stiffens, you're clenching your fist under the table. Your mind scrambles for a comeback that will shut it all down fast. Now ask yourself, how often does this happen? Whether it's a partner criticizing your effort, a friend misunderstanding you, or a stranger cutting you off on the freeway, how often do you feel your body reacting before you even understand what's happening? And then what tempts you more, defending your pride or preserving your peace? You see, when the heat of the moment takes over, most of us instinctively snap back. We raise our voice, we interrupt, we fire emails with angry fingers and slam doors on our way out. We act first and explain later, if there's anything left to explain. But what does that do? It gives your power away. It lets your emotions hold the reins, and the results? Often regret, broken trust, lost credibility, fractured connection. So here's the real question. What if not reacting is where the real power lives? What if your silence, your pause, your purposefully withheld retaliation was your greatest weapon? The Stoics believed precisely that. According to Stoic philosophy, we are not disturbed by events themselves, but by our interpretations of them. In other words, the stimulus isn't the problem, it's your response that gives it weight. The solution: build space, create a conscious delay between what happens to you and what you do with it. Try this: the next time words cut deep, don't respond right away. Take in the air around you. Notice the rise in your chest. Observe the urge to fight, and don't obey it. Breathe, then choose your next move. Not reactively, but intentionally. This delay becomes your fortress. Each time you resist that pull to lash out, you strengthen the walls. Over time, you'll find you no longer feel like a man cornered by his feelings, but one commanding them. This happened to me just last fall. I was sitting in a quarterly review with one of my investors. We were planning the next phase in a high-stakes expansion, and tensions had been brewing. He looked across the table, stared me straight in the face, and said, "I'm not sure you're tough enough to make the hard calls." My initial instinct was fire rage, even. I wanted to push back immediately, correct him, defend the impossible hours I'd been working. My ego was screaming to be let off the leash. But I remembered the practice. I inhaled slowly, nodded and said nothing. Not silence from weakness, but from clarity. Instead, I asked him genuinely, "What makes you say that?" And what followed was a 20-minute discussion that got to the real issue. He wasn't seeing the numbers he expected, but his comment had come from frustration, not truth. To everyone's surprise, the tone shifted. He relaxed. I stayed grounded. And because neither of us exploded, we were able to rebuild trust that could have been shattered in seconds. That moment stuck with me, not just because I stayed calm, but because I realized something. Emotional strength doesn't always roar, sometimes it just whispers a wait. You see, the true mastery wasn't in having the perfect response. It was in not needing one at all. The power came from restraint, not retaliation. And in that stillness, I found authority, presence, focus. So the next time the storm comes knocking, remember this: the first punch is not the real threat. It's the unguarded reaction that cuts deeper. But build your delay, own your pause, and you will find a kind of power that cannot be taken, only cultivated. Let silence set the frame. Before we dive deeper, let's take a moment to consider the power of something often ignored: silence. Picture this: you're in a high-stakes boardroom. The air is tight with anticipation. You've just presented your proposal, and now all eyes are on you. The room falls still. Instinctively, your heart races. You feel the urge to keep talking, clarify, defend. Do you fill the gap with more pitch, more words? It feels like speaking is the only way to maintain control, to project confidence, to break the tension. But what if silence is the most commanding move you can make? Most people rush to fill silence out of fear of rejection, fear of losing influence, fear of being perceived as weak or unsure. So we ramble, over-explain, interrupt ourselves, and what happens? We dilute our message. We give away information. We lose our frame. Then what? Our words become wallpaper. Our presence fades into the noise. But ask yourself, what if less is not passive, but powerful? Instead of scrambling to speak, the Stoic chooses to wait. Silence is not a void. It's a mirror. It reflects everything back to the other person: pressure, unresolved tension, their own uncertainty. It's a tool forged from restraint. Just as the Stoics embraced discomfort as a condition for strength, they also embrace silence as a space for clarity. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you need to avoid certain things in your train of thought, everything random and irrelevant. Silence is your way of vetting your thoughts before they become words. So, resist the urge to fill every moment. Let the pause do the talking. Take a breath, look them in the eye. Let the silence stretch a fraction longer. Watch how uncomfortable they become. Watch what they reveal. Watch who breaks first. Because in that space, power transfers. It's like sharpening a blade. You don't swing wildly and hope. You wait, you measure, and when you strike, it's deliberate. Speak like that, only when needed, only with precision. Let silence set your terms, so when your voice enters, it enters with gravity. I remember sitting across from a potential business partner last year. It was a casual dinner, but you could feel everything hinged on the conversation that lay unspoken between the glasses of bourbon and polite small talk. He asked me what I thought about a certain investment strategy, and I paused. Not a long pause, just purposeful. I let his question hang mid-air. I watched his posture shift, his fork slow. The silence moved over the table like a lens focusing in. Then he kept talking. He elaborated. He revealed more. Without realizing it, he showed his entire hand. Had I rushed in to answer quickly to sound smart, agreeable, confident, I would have missed it. That moment taught me something I didn't expect. Silence disrupts. It creates discomfort, but in that discomfort, truths surface. Assumptions tremble. Motives are clarified. And when you finally decide to speak, your words land like stone against still water, ripples wide, resonating long after. So, the next time, that moment, whether it's with a colleague, a client, or in conflict with yourself, try this. Say nothing. Let the other person feel the weight of your silence. Let them wonder. Let them speak first. And when you're ready, speak with calm, with clarity, with conviction. You'll be surprised how loud your silence can be. Embrace strategic ambiguity. So, let's explore a hidden strength most people overlook: the power of saying less and meaning more. Picture this: you're in a conference room. The tension is thick. You're pitching an idea to a room full of decision makers who each carry an agenda of their own. Your co-founder keeps glancing at you, waiting for you to jump in. A competitor in the room shows off with confident jargon and overzealous promises. You know the numbers. You know the risks. But you also know the plan isn't ready to be fully revealed. What do? Your instinct might scream, "Speak now. Explain everything. Prove your worth. Don't let them misunderstand." So you clench your fists beneath the table. Your mouth goes dry. And you feel that familiar anxiety, the one that whispers, "Say something before it's too late." But what if it's not? What if silence is part of the plan? Most people react with reflex blurting when they should wait, explaining when they should withhold. They try to manage perception by giving everything away. However, they end up doing the opposite. They look desperate. Their clarity invites attack. Their certainty becomes a target. So then they're misunderstood, misquoted, tangled in interpretations they can't control. But what if there's another way? What if you could win the war by vanishing from the battlefield? Enter the Stoic principle of strategic ambiguity. The Stoics teach us that power lies in mastering our impulses, not just emotional restraint, but verbal restraint. Seneca said, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence. That season, friend, is not dictated by fear, but by wisdom." So try this. Next time you're tempted to reveal your strategy, ask yourself who it serves. Resist the need to be validated. Be composed, deliberate, and unhurried. Let them assume. Let them miscalculate. Their guesses become your camouflage. The less you explain, the more they fill the space with their projection, and projection is rarely accurate. It's like chess: the silence between the moves unnerves your opponent more than the move itself. Sometimes, your greatest leverage is their ignorance. A few years ago, I sat across the table from a VC partner during a series of negotiation. We were discussing valuations. They pressed me hard. "What's your long-term game plan? Are you planning to exit in 5 years or scale?" My instinct wanted to over-explain, to paint the grand vision, the roadmap, the logic behind every move. But something in me paused. Instead, I smiled and simply said, "We're patient capital. Our timing matches opportunity." And I stopped. The room hung in quiet for a moment. Then, he leaned back, studying me, unsure of what I was really saying. Later, he admitted, "I couldn't read if you were guarding a bigger play or just cautious." It made me rethink the entire term sheet. To this day, I believe that moment of restraint altered the trajectory of that negotiation. To everyone's surprise, silence became the loudest signal in the room. It said, "I know more than I've said, and I'm not afraid of not being understood." That shifted the power dynamic. Instead of chasing clarity, I held control, the lesson. Clarity can be impressive, sure, but mystery can be mightier. When others think they understand you, they stop watching closely. But when they're unsure, when they sense there's more behind the curtain, they stay alert. And respect follows attention. In a world obsessed with transparency, sometimes your edge lies in opacity. Don't be reckless, but don't be obvious. Your silence, if purposeful, can build a reputation stronger than your words ever could. So, the next time you feel pressure to explain yourself, see it for what it is, an invitation. Decline it. Let your discipline speak louder than your voice. Be defined by scarcity. Before we crave attention, let's take a moment to understand why true strength often begins in silence. Imagine this. You reply to every email within minutes. You say yes to every meeting. You're always reachable, always available, always responsive. You're seen everywhere, walking into every room, chiming in on every group chat, posting updates for everyone's applause. But have you ever felt invisible? You're doing everything right, so why aren't you being valued? Why do they text you at midnight like it's nothing? Why do they expect your time like it's on sale? Maybe it's because they've never been forced to feel your absence. You see, when you're always present, your presence becomes ordinary, familiarity becomes expectation, and what's expected is rarely respected. This will blow your mind, but scarcity increases value not in theory, but in raw, human psychology. Yet most people do the opposite. They keep showing up, louder and more often, hoping to be seen. They beg subtly with availability, with favors, with access. And what happens? Their value plummets. Their time becomes something that can be interrupted, postponed, disregarded. People tune them out like background noise because, unconsciously, we all begin to ignore what we can always access. So what can you do differently? Let's go deeper into the Stoic heart of restraint. The Stoics believed that power is not in presence but in control. That to be rarely seen is not weakness, it's wisdom. That pulling back is not retreat, it's clarity. Be defined by scarcity. Resist the urge to be everywhere. Try this instead. Hold your time like a weight in your palm. Only extend it with intention. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to live within a discipline. Staying quiet in a meeting, sometimes louder than a monologue. Taking a few hours to reply to an email shows priority and poise. Missing an event teaches others that your time is earned, not assumed. Think of the sun, it shows up once a day, and every living thing still leans toward it. A river that dries for a season is more sacred than a faucet that never stops dripping. Your value doesn't increase by constantly proving it. You teach people how to treat you by how scarce, how protected your presence is. I learned this the hard way. There was a time not so long ago when I was sprinting through every interaction. I responded to texts like a lifeline. I joined every call. I thought speed meant reliability, and visibility meant relevance. I remember one night sitting at dinner, distractedly checking Slack, until my wife said, "You know you're here, but you're not really here." The worst part, she wasn't even upset. She was used to it. And very soon after, so were my clients. My availability became my identity, so I did something terrifying. I built walls. I started setting no contact hours during my evenings. I deleted Slack from my phone. I designed boundaries, not out of arrogance, but necessity. At first, yes, some people were confused. A few got quiet, but eventually, the tone changed. People spoke with more intention. They apologized when they called. My time wasn't just taken, it was requested. In that brief silence, a powerful message echoed. I'm not ignoring you. I'm protecting what matters. You see, I didn't just earn back my peace. I earned back my value. What shocked me most was how people responded, not with resistance, but respect. The world didn't end. The business didn't collapse. But the anxiety, the drowning sense of always scrambling faded. In its place, sovereignty. I realized something important that day. You don't need to make noise to matter. You don't need to overextend to prove you're essential. You just need to be intentional with your presence, so that when it's felt, it's unforgettable. So the next time you're tempted to answer instantly, say yes again, or show up purely to stay visible, pause. Ask yourself, who do I become when I reclaim my space? Above all, remember, if you're always available, you're never truly seen. Lead with reflective composure. To lead a room, you must first lead yourself, so let's explore how composure opens the door to influence more than force ever could. Imagine you're sitting across from a heated colleague in a boardroom. The stakes are high, a deal teeters in uncertainty, and voices swell with tension. Their tone sharpens, their face tightens. Each word feels like a brick thrown across a table. You've felt this before. haven't you? That tightening in your chest, the desperate search for the right comeback, the subtle panic to defend your position. Do you raise your voice to match theirs? Do you shut down and retreat inward? What if there was another way where you wielded influence, not with noise, but with quiet alignment? What if instead of matching their aggression, you matched their rhythm? What if power didn't shout, but resonated? Usually, we respond instinctively, matching intensity for intensity. Someone yells, and we get louder. Someone withdraws, and we feel brushed off, maybe even insulted. These automatic reactions might feel immediate and justified, but where do they lead? Misunderstandings grow, bridges burn, influence is lost. You walk away wondering, why did it get so personal? Why didn't they listen? However, what if instead of reacting, you mirrored? Instead of amplifying emotion, you absorbed it and transformed it into stillness. Instead of trying to overpower others with logic or dominance, you aligned with their energy to guide it gently. This is where Stoicism steps in, not as cold indifference, but as internal sovereignty. At its core, Stoicism teaches that we are not disturbed by things themselves, but by the judgments we attach to them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. So, resist the temptation to mirror emotional volatility. Try this. Slow your breath when the room speeds up. Shorten your words when others ramble. Listen deeply, so deeply that people feel understood before they even finish speaking. Match their tone in tempo, not in temperature. Calm, after all, is contagious. Think of yourself as the bass note in a room of treble voices. Others will unconsciously attune to your composure. Emotions mirror before logic speaks. Those with influence understand. People listen best when they feel heard. And attention naturally flows to those who seem grounded when others tremble. I remember one evening months ago was pitching a product suite to a group of skeptical VCs in downtown Austin. You could read it all over their faces: restlessness, distraction, latent condescension hidden behind polite smiles. Halfway through my pitch, one of them cut in, voice slightly raised, waving a dismissive hand. "I just don't see why this matters. Isn't the market saturated? What makes this even relevant?" Blood surged. My ego flared. Every part of me wanted to push back, to sell harder, to win. But I called myself. I took a breath. I matched his concern, not his tone. I said slowly, "That's a valid point. The market does appear saturated and to the 10 founders waiting on waitlists for what we're building. I get where you're coming from though. It's the same thing I wondered until we heard their voices. May I show you a 2-minute clip?" Suddenly, the posture of the table changed, phones down, eyes up. 2 minutes later, the room was different. Not because I proved them wrong, but because I aligned with them emotionally and then guided the tune. To everyone's surprise, they not only stayed long after the meeting ended, they led the round. That small shift, resisting the urge to defend, and instead anchoring in calm, made all the difference. The power in that moment wasn't in saying more, but in being more still. Because calm gives people a safe place to listen. It tells them you're not here to fight, you're here to reach. So, what's the lesson? That dominance isn't what turns heads, composure does. In a world chasing validation, the person least reactive becomes the one most respected. Stay grounded, reflect their energy, don't absorb it. Channel their storm through your stillness. Your influence lives not in what you argue, but in what you mirror, and from there, you lead. Exit with intent, not emotion. To begin with, let's talk about that moment most people dread, but few prepare for, the moment you must walk away. Imagine this. You're in a meeting that's gone off the rails. Maybe it's a heated negotiation, a tense client call, or a personal conversation with someone who constantly disrespects your boundaries. Your chest tightens, your jaw clenches, a volcano simmers just beneath your skin. You can feel the weight of unspoken words on your tongue, straining to burst. Do you lash out? Do you stay silent and seethe? Do you burn the bridge? Or do you build a door and walk away? What if the act of walking away doesn't mean defeat, but command? Most people react, they raise their voice, slam doors, send long-winded texts laced with apology and aggression. And afterward, they're left with guilt, with doubts, with emotional hangovers that linger longer than the conflict ever should have. They wonder, did I overreact? Did I make it worse? However, consider this. Could it be that real power lies not in the fight, but in the decision to not enter the battlefield in the first place? Instead of reacting with emotion, what happens when we respond with standards? The Stoics taught us, time and again, to master the one thing truly in our control, ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. So, resist the need to retaliate. Try this instead. Take a breath. Picture the outcome. You would be proud of 5 years from now, not one that just satisfies you for 5 seconds. Ask yourself, is this response aligned with who I am, or just how I feel right now? Refuse to let urgency rob you of clarity. Think of it like music. Emotion is the drumbeat, it feels good to play loud. But intent is the silence between the notes. It's what gives meaning. When you walk out of the room without slamming the door, when you shake hands and leave, even if they don't deserve it, you're not escaping. You're elevating. I remember it clearly, even now. It was a midsummer Tuesday in a glass-walled conference room at a venture capital firm in Austin. I was there pitching a project I'd worked a year on, sleepless nights, calculated risks, every ounce of conviction poured into it. Halfway through, one of the partners interrupted, dismissing our deck with a half-smile. He leaned back and said, "Cute, but honestly, feels a little ambitious for your background." In that flash, I felt every vein in my body tense. My throat dried up. My ego wanted vengeance. Words armed themselves like soldiers behind my lips. But then, I paused, just long enough. In that moment, I remembered, people don't get to dictate your value unless you hand them the pen. Instead of biting back, I calmly closed my laptop. I thanked them for their time. I reminded them without anger, but with steady resolve, that our vision wasn't built for short-sighted eyes, and I left the room. To everyone's surprise, 2 weeks later, one of their junior analysts, someone who had sat silently during the meeting, reached out. Said he'd been inspired by how I handled it. Said he had left that firm shortly after. Said he wanted to invest privately. Because of this experience, I learned something far more valuable than any funding round. Detachment isn't disinterest, it's discipline. The outcome, a deal closed from walking away with intent, not submission. A bridge held strong because I didn't burn it. I simply chose not to cross it. So when you face the next moment that tests your emotional control, ask yourself, are you leaving to prove something or to protect something? Yourself, your peace, your dignity. Default text. Sometimes the loudest move is the quietest exit. Do it with silence. Do it with standards. And they won't hear your feet walking away, but they'll feel your absence echo. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't clamor or boast. It waits measured, calm, and steadfast. While others race to outthink and outshine, you sit at the center, present, disciplined, unmoved. Each of the 6 Stoic rules you've just learned isn't a trick, they are foundations. Foundations for living quietly and living well. For commanding without raising your voice. For influencing without chasing attention. In silence, you will be noticed. In restraint, remembered. When they react, you will reflect. When they seek victory over others, you'll master yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. B1. These teachings don't serve your ego. They serve your strength. You don't need to play their games because the board belongs to you. Speak less, observe more, be so steady, so centered, that the chaos around you becomes irrelevant. If this lesson stirred something in you, hold on to it. Don't let it pass with the scroll. Comment stay 5 steps to mark your place as someone who leads from within. Like the video if it lit a spark. Subscribe if you're ready for the long climb upward. Until next time, remember, the calmest man in the room always wins.